Previously on the Booth Monkeys. Sometimes when you get caught up doing nothing but work, you kind of forget to do the living.
Alright, looks like time is limited.
I'm also running out of patience because I gotta get these movies made.
So I knew this video was cursed.
It's not anti-work, but pro-worker. In a world that is mostly anti-worker.
I don't even know what I was writing there. Shit. Just because you burped on my food doesn't mean you get it. No. Look at this. Here comes the cat. What are you doing exploring back there? Why are you up there with all that stuff?
He's on fire!
Years of struggle. We find a way to do it, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Hello, Internet. Mr. BPG here. And, do you think I was done? Nah. The story's never done until it's actually done. And, here we are with the, follow-up, where we gotta go back into some of those, what do you call them? Some of those scenes that I didn't quite remember to put in the movie. Some of those things I have to add. The whole thing about the sewing that I was thinking about you with. How much I love you and what you sew. Got my blanket wrapped up right here.
Mm-hmm.
Keep me warm. So where we left off was basically at the end of the script that was written during the beginning of the COVID years. And I guess I was in a different place, in a different situation where those stories ended a certain way. And reading through the script the way I did recently, I noticed a few things that I wanted to add, some opportunities to develop characters more, and just in general, a couple of scenes that I felt were missing that hadn't quite earned the life currency yet to write. So now I'm in the process of writing those, and let's go over them right now. Listen, film is an expensive business. Ryan just admits this is the end of the Booth Monkeys. So essentially we're right towards the beginning, where after we are introduced to the Jenny character before we're introduced to the Candace character, Jenny comes in and basically drops the bomb that they're going to be losing the film projection booth. And so the guys immediately start packing up the booth in the very next scene. And I realized that wasn't satisfying enough. And I realized also it was a good chance for me to, one, start developing that connection between Jenny and Ryan so that we can start to see their connecting earlier on in the story than just his breakaway fantasy. And then I also wanted to set the seeds for what this project eventually became along the way. So interior office later, Jenny's settling into her desk. There are small characters similar to what Ryan had at his place in his home scene. Dre and Ryan enter the office. Dre sits at the desk, but Ryan is immediately drawn to the small figurines. Jenny crosses her arm and points at Ryan. Don't touch anything. You probably have projector oil all over your fingers. Ryan sniffs his fingers and is surprised to find that he does have projector oil on his fingers, and it actually smells delicious, so he just starts sniffing away. Dre says to Jenny, "We're here to bargain," because one of the grander themes of the script was always the 5 stages of grief on the Kubler-Ross scale, where these characters are suffering a loss, the loss of their job. He's going to go through all 5 stages up until acceptance as he realizes he's lost his dream job. Foreshadowing early on what, the ending is really all about. All of us coming to terms with those 5 stages. Dre says, "Andre, you have to bargain. To bargain, you have to have something of value." Dre says, "Well, there has to be some way for me to keep my job." Jenny says, "There is. Take your demotion like a man and work on the floor team. You will have to learn to wash your hands." Dre says, "I know how to wash my hands." Jenny says, "I can smell the oil from here." So Dre starts smelling his fingers, and Ryan interjects, basically staring at the shit on her wall, and says, "Wait, is this an original shitsa?" And Jenny says, "Yes, don't touch it." Oh, no, I wrote that. She says, "Yes, it's fresh in the box." And that's an inside joke to something I referenced in one of the early episodes, ranting and raving about a shitsa. A real shitsa is when some decides to take a big full human defecation into a pizza box, and inside that pizza box leaves the pizza box there for someone to come and find and clean up. And one day when I came across it, I described it as a shitsa and went on a rant, and it was always funny at the house, but I wanted him to be looking at little toy figurines, but didn't want to like name an actual Pokemon, so I picked one that sounded official, like shitsa, as an inside joke to the family. Anyways, Dre tells Ryan to stay focused. Ryan says, "You can't demote Dre. I'm going to need him in the booth." Jenny says, "No, you won't. The transition's been done now in 4 states. We've already tested it. We only need a single projectionist to manage these digital files and do some light cleaning." Ryan says, "That's impossible to clean light. All those floaty bits just keep floating around no matter how much I vacuum them." Jenny says, "Well, besides this craziness, we're going to close down 2 theaters that are least used anyways, and basically use them as storage. It's not like we sell enough tickets to keep those theaters going anyways, so now they're basically spare parts." Dre's been listening the whole time and smelling his fingers. Then he breaks in, "Well, why can't we use those theaters? Wait, I have an idea, but it's coming at me so fast. I can't formulate sentences. But what if Ryan and I managed a film theater and we use those unused theaters just for film?" Jenny says, "The corporate office is not going to negotiate with you, Dre." Dre says, "But what if we convince them there's still money to be made in the film booth? There has to be enough people out there in the world that are not going to want to go to a digital print of the movie when they can watch a high-quality digital print at home." "Andre," says Jenny. "I do prefer Dre," says Dre. Jenny says, "Go to the unemployment office and find a new job. I'm sorry, but I can't help you." Dre gets up and wants to continue the argument, but for a second he stops himself because he's now thinking about that idea he had. Is there really a connection of people out there that want to save a film booth, that want to see movies in their original film ways? Think about how many movies have been changed and adjusted digitally on Shot First. And now here we are where, people looking for things to do, having an actual film theater, which we're trying to turn this project into in its grander schemes, allows there to be a brand new niche in an entire market that's basically nicheless, that has no tourism and is being flown over by all the local population. It's just one of the first things to bring back into that mall. So I added this scene early on in the script to develop the Ryan and Jenny characters, because at the end of the scene, Ryan is left looking at Jenny, then he looks back at the figurines, and he looks back at Jenny, and then he looks at his fingers, and then he quietly, awkwardly leaves the room with a bow. And then we go back to where we did in the original script before I thought of the scene where the guys basically start closing down the projection booth in montage. And then get back to those scenes where, we get introduced to the other character, Candace. So not much has changed in the middle here, except I did work out a little bit towards the middle, some more smoother transitions on them describing this grander idea. This grand idea when they're hanging out with Zach and drinking Prevulus. What word did I just make up? Prevulus?
How's that digital installation coming along, says Zach. Digital install is going slow and steady. We had a brain rep the other day and the manager threatened to end the film projection. Aren't you guys going all digital anyways, thought Zach?
Ryan and Jenny are at the cork board and there's a map of the booth. With a red marker, Jenny crosses off film written in black ink and writes a big letter D in red ink under that X. Less than half the film projectors are gone and we're down to just a few film projectors left. And Zach comes by and asks Ryan, like, "Hey, I'm almost getting a hernia from bringing those boxes up to you, so how's that digital install going?" So Ryan says, "Digital's going slow and steady, down to our last few film projectors." Zach says, "Well, aren't you going all digital?" And Ryan says, "Soon we will have one film theater. It's supposed to stay film a while longer, but Jenny's starting to shut it down early and use it for storage. Well, to the end of an era. Zach holds up his beer, but Dre stops it with his hand. He puts his beer on the table in front of him, picks up his notebook from the table, and opens it up. Been working around this idea for a while. I think there's a way we can save the film theater. I started imagining what a dream theater would be. People will want to see movies on film, so maybe we convince them to use the film theater for special occasions. There's always going to be old copies of the movies lying around for rent, right? So why don't we rent older movies? What, like Ed used to? Yeah, we could play Halloween on Halloween, Christmas Story on Christmas, and Star Wars on the 4th of May. Not to mention all the other ones I mentioned earlier here. Zach asks what's stopping you, and Dre says, well, we're getting a copy of those movies. Before he left, Ed was the one who booked all the movies. Yeah, that, and Jenny hates film projection, and she's the manager now, she'll never go for it. Dre says, well, what if we put the perfect movie and we set up a screening for her? Maybe we convince people in the community to sign a petition and come out on one day. But how do we even get a movie? I don't know, says Dre. What about that movie Ed made, says Zach. And here's the next change where this was a very clunky expositional line of dialogue earlier in the story. And my goal this time was to clean up the flow of it to explain exactly why they get around to using the movie bullshit as their way to save the booth. Zach says, sure he did. He called it bullshit. Every once in a while, distributor forgot to request the film print, and they'd leave it behind, and because it was damaged maybe, but he would basically take him back upstairs. I asked him once what he was doing with them, and he said he was making his own private movie with all the bullshit short ends that he could collect. Ryan says, so it's just a collection of damaged reels? Trey says, wait, I remember Ed using a training movie that he made us practice on. He didn't want to risk us damaging an active print of film while we were in training. Plus, I'm not even sure where it is. We've cleaned the booth out to basically empty and we haven't found it. There hasn't been any film print hanging out. Zach says, well, go look one more time and find it. I doubt he had time to move it. Maybe he just hid it really well. Dre, that is a good idea. Start a petition with movie lovers in the area and maybe we'll save that film booth, says Zach. Ryan says, that could work if we could prove to Jemmy there's still film lovers. Trey says, yeah, unless society messes it up again. Damn society. Zach says, if it doesn't work, Trey, you can always be a delivery driver with me. And then we get back to the last jokes we had to end that scene. So another minor addition I brought was my son rightly pointed out that our road trip was kind of like guys get in car, guys get gas, guys arrive at location. There wasn't much road trip to it. So I did add a transition scene showing the Ryan and Dre leaving what looks like a suburbia to a much more forested, dense population. Essentially trying to visually show them driving out of town. And then later on, after the Batarang conversation, arguing about it being a useful or stupid tool, Ryan says, "Oh shit, there goes another armadillo." Jerry looks out the window and just says, "What?" And Ryan explains, "I keep seeing dead armadillos on the side of the road. I didn't even realize they were native to this region." Jerry just says, "What?" Ryan says, "Well, I assume they were hit by cars and trucks when they crossed the road. That's probably, they're probably not fast, those armadillos." Trey says, "That was a tire. It's just the truck tire that got ripped off and curled up on the side of the road." Ryan says, "Are you sure?" Trey says, "Yes." Ryan says, "No, I'm pretty sure a few of those were dead armadillos." "Nah," says Dre, "they're just tires. Are you getting tired? Do you need me to take over on this drive?" Ryan says, "Shut up, I'm fine." Trey says, "Because it seems like your eyesight is slipping." Ryan says, "I know what I saw. Those were armadillos." "Tires," says Dre. "Armadillos," says Ryan. Dre says, "If it was an armadillo, wouldn't it just roll into a ball and just get bounced into the forest like a soccer ball?" And then we get to an exterior forest where time has passed, and now the sun has transitioned low enough that the trees of the forest are making the scene seem much darker and even more changed than it was before. So it's kind of how I added to the the road trip that wasn't much of a road trip. Yes, thank you for the kisses.
But then the other changes to the script were basically right here at the end. Because here at the end, we're only at the beginning. So at the end, of the script. What? Oh.
So where we left off at the end of the script was where I bailed out and went back into the job world. I had been independently producing and trying to build this project quietly in the background, writing the script. And then when I got to the point of coming to the end, I tapped into life currency and thought back about the time that my mother was almost killed in a car accident, trying to do exactly what I talk about in this movie. These characters are trying to survive going from work to work, job to job, and so I kind of went with that ending. And after going through it, I realized it wasn't quite earned. There was still a piece missing. So I got to interior Dre and Candace home night, because before that, we get to that point in the story where Ryan is asking about what happened and kind of prying at Dre, and Dre just says, "Do you mind if I flash back at you?" Ryan says, "Please, I need the closure." So we transition to the interior of Dre and Candace home at night. Dre is sitting on the couch with Candace behind him at a desk. Dre is reading from an anatomy book with several other books stacked next to it, with an open notebook on one side. Candace is working with the sewing machine. She works quickly and excitedly. Every time she presses the sewing machine into motion, the activity shakes the desk and couch, causing Dre's vision to blur what he's reading. She stops a moment, so he begins to read again, only for the sewing machine to resume and his vision to blur again. He rolls his eyes around back and forth towards her, towards the book. The sewing goes on for long, long moments, then sometimes it goes on for short moments, and then every time she starts, he starts, and every time she stops, he stops, and it goes back and forth to make the joke. But then eventually she stops, and then she comes over, and she sits down and covers Dre with one half of a quilt. And it's the same half of the quilt that was mentioned multiple times in the earlier script. The quilt had further connection. Quilt, blanket, just sewed by Candace was the point of it. And Dre puts his books aside to look at the quilt. Dre says, "Okay, well, what is it?" Candace says, "It's a quilt I made for Mary. This is going to be their future daughter. This is the only first half of the quilt I made and designed for the other side." Dre reaches across and rubs Candace's baby bump. She smiles and gets up. "Let me show you the other side." Dre turns back to his anatomy book, and when he turns back, Candace is now breastfeeding baby Mary. And she is using the quilt that she made, showing off the other side by using it to cover the baby while she breastfeeds. She's still sitting on the couch with Dre. She asks him, "How are your studies?" Dre answers, I don't know if I could do this. There's just so much to learn, plus so many body systems to learn. Candace just says, "I believe in you. It's just another year before you'll be ready to graduate and even begin your career." Dre says, "I guess, but there's so much to learn about what can go wrong with any of those systems. Organs and glands can have issues, and I'm expecting to know it all and to be able to help people in their time of need." Dre turns back to his book. The book that he picks up is not the one he needs, so he moves around to look for other books to find a specific one. Dre finds the one book, and then he turns pages until he finds what he's looking for. He turns the book back towards Candace, who's sitting on the couch wrapped in the quilt that she made. Mary, their daughter, is now 2 years old and playing quietly by herself on the floor in the background. Dre says, "See? Fatigue, body aches, they won't go away. This could be a serious problem, anything from Addison's disease to cancer. Maybe even an STD. Are you having unprotected sex?" She gives him a look. Of course not. But, shout out to reality and who might realize how shitty that joke is. But anyways, Candace throws a pillow at him. She says, "You're being paranoid. You've learned about all these things, but I'm just fine. I'm just tired. I'm going back to work, and, we got our kid here. I'm just tired. You're worrying too much." Dre gets up from the couch. He walks over to Mary, picks her up, brings her to the other room, kind of just putting her off to bed for a second. When he returns to the couch, Candace is now showing signs of illness in the script. Dre says, "I don't think you're worried enough." Candace says, "Yeah, the doctor says it could be cancer, but we're waiting on the test. Maybe I'm just low on vitamin D." Dre says, "You know how this goes. You work in home health care. I've seen it all before because you sent me on all these jobs as a caregiver when people are in this stage of life. You don't think I can recognize them in my own home," says Dre. Candace says, "Why aren't you working on your certification to be an EMT, to be a medic? You should be reading." Dre says, "I took a break on that to be here with you and Mary." Candace screams, "I don't need a caregiver." Dre says, "I just want to spend time with you. All we do is work. Is it wrong that I want to be with you?" says Dre. Candace says, "But I don't want to be the reason you give up on your career. You watch me fade away. I want you to focus, study, and help people the way you do." Dre says, "I don't care about a career job or a dream job. I'm living my dream ever since I've met you. And I'm here to take care of you until this passes." "Hell of a word choice," says there. "Hell of a word choice, husband," says Candace. Dre lays himself back on the couch. As he lays back, Candace slowly moves over to him, and they cuddle together on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. Dre offers Candace popcorn. She's pale, and she's lost her hunger, so she waves no. Mary, who's now 4 years old, is watching the movie next to Dre and on the other side of the couch. Candace asks, "Is this okay?" And Dre says, "This is perfect." Candace falls asleep on Dre's shoulder as he watches the movie with Mary, Candace wrapped in her blanket. Then Dre says in voiceover, "When it happens fast. It starts off with being tired, and then it slowly eats you away. Fuck cancer." And we're back in real time with Ryan and Dre sitting together as he gets back to that point where he asks him, "Well, what's it like raising a kid now, and how are those things going?" We finally got the closure of what happens and gave more of a reason as to why she wasn't there at the end of the script. And I wrote that scene as my own version of the ending of 2001. I tried to play with the idea of writing it in a way that it appears as a oneer, as a long one take, just watching these characters transition through years of their life. And in the time since I first wrote the script and the time since I have lived in this life currency now, it made sense to go that route versus just the random car accident. Especially that foreshadowing I've been giving ever since the beginning. If you go back and listen to the script, there's been a lot of foreshadowing of this going forward, just sort of in the background in the dialogue. And this is mainly because over the last few years I've had, through COVID, cancer, and other things, lost so many good people. And sharing the last episode, I was getting some feedback. What was being told to me was, why have such a super realism, dark and unhappy type ending? And I guess I explained it as this: some art is meant to be the escapism. You suspend your disbelief and you just escape into a magical world, and some of it's supposed to be cinema of the true art and true life. And I think too much in cinema we show everybody winning. We show it always working out. We show it always becoming the win at the end. Everybody gets what they want. Their dreams come true, when I know for a fact the sad reality of nearly most of us and most average people, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes we do take an L, and the more L's we take, the harder it is to go forward and participate the same way. Which is why, why we tell this story in the first place. Starts off as a father just reading a bedtime story to his daughter, but takes the entire movie's worth of time to bring the audience into the world of these characters and realize these are real characters in an artistic representation of a capitalist world, doing the best they can and trying to live life to the fullest while they can. I know I went for kind of a out of the way twist ending, and I know that it came out of the blue and maybe didn't feel earned in episode 10, so I hope here in episode 11 you see why I chose to go that route. And we'll see if this 2001 style montage ending actually plays on screen and works with an audience. Who knows? It's all part of the production process, isn't it? I don't think I have anything else to add. I've literally put everyone around me to sleep, so. Oh wait, I know what I need to add. Let's kick it to Mr. BPG.